darlings, and welcome to Lissy's 10 Essential Things for Your Cupboards. Now, this is my essential things in my cupboards that I find are just so useful. They just work for so many different dishes, and that's what I love about food, that I get the flexibility. I rarely have anything in my cupboards that you can only use for one dish. These particular staples that I always keep are just fantastic, and I use them again and again and again in so many different things. So my personal opinion is if you have these 10 things in your house, you've got the base for pretty much a hell of a lot of food. So let's get started. First thing I would say is cinnamon. Now, cinnamon is a bit of a love or hate with some people. Too much, people say it tastes soapy, but I do think it's fantastic for spicing anything up. Cakes, pancakes, desserts, whipped cream, custards, anything really, and cinnamon is just so fabulous, and it kind of brings a sweetness into the flavour as well. So if you want to do things that are low sugar, a tiny little bit of cinnamon will make that taste fantastic. Second thing on my list is another baking necessity. I like this one. This particular vanilla is Nilsa Massic. I normally get the Madagascar Bourbon vanilla because I just love it, and it has such a vanilla-y taste. It is gorgeous. It really makes everything taste homemade. I pop this in my pancakes, in my cakes, in my custard, in my desserts, in my cream, in my trifle, in my everything. This also adds a little bit of sweetness, even though this is in vanilla extract, so it is in alcohol, but the alcohol evaporates really super fast. So by the time you go to serve whatever it is, that alcohol flavour's gone, and you're just left with that warm, gorgeous, sweet vanilla flavour. Again, if you want to cut down on sugar and things, a little bit of vanilla extract will really help you. Next thing on my list, salt. Whether it's table salt, which is cheapest chips, or whether it's the granules, which I use in the salt grinder for food we use at the table and in cooking, it's totally up to you. This is saltier than this, and this obviously will go further because it is saltier. Obviously, you've really got to be careful with putting sodium in your food for anybody at all, but it's not only just the basis for great food, it's also a great seasoning. If you don't have stock cubes and stuff, just a little bit of salt will really make things wonderful. It just brings the flavour out. Plus, I also use these big ones because sometimes when I make Play-Doh, I use a ton of salt just to make it safe. But as a cooking essential, you can't go wrong with having salt. And it's whether it's the rock salt or whether it's the table salt, you know, it just adds a little flavour to your life. So I always have some kind of salt in my cupboards. Again, it's your choice which one you want to choose. Next one is ketchup. There is actually some still in here. It's just that I use it so much in so many dishes, it just gets used really quickly. So, you know, obviously this is a brand label, but Shop's own brand is absolutely fine. It's just that this happened to be on special offer at the time, so we bought it. But I use it in so many dishes, and I know this sounds crazy because it's a condiment. So people put it on their burgers or with their eggs or with their fish fingers. But I do add a little bit sometimes to my cooking because it does give a wonderful tomato flavour, and there's a little bit of sweetness in there. Plus there's all sorts of herbs and spices and stuff in as well. But I do find sometimes a recipe just needs a little bit of a tomato kick, but not a full tin of tomatoes or whatever, or not the intensity of a tomato puree. Ketchup to the rescue! And that reminds me, we're running low. Alexa, put ketchup on the shopping list.
Ketchup added to your shopping list.
Nice. Next on my list, vinegar. This is cider vinegar, but any vinegar or actually wine. Now, I know this sounds like a really weird thing to say. The words leftover wine don't usually normally go together in this house. If you do have leftover wine, port, sherry, beer, cider, anything like that, don't throw it out, leave it to one side, pop it in the fridge and shove it in your cooking. I'm always popping a bit of wine into stews and chili con carnes and even hamburgers sometimes, just because it helps to take that raw edge off meat. Sometimes if you've got meat and it's oxidized a bit, it tends to get a bit of a raw flavour, and I find just putting a little bit of sort of sour, so wine or vinegar in, really does the job. Incidentally, this has 1 Great Taste star, and just for a little shameless bragging, I have 2 for my lemon drizzle. Next we have honey. Now, honey, or you can use sugar, or you can even use golden syrup. Don't be fussy. Some recipes say, oh, put this bit of honey in, and it's like, but I haven't got honey. Usually it's just for the sweetness of things, so then you can substitute a little bit of sugar or a little bit of golden syrup. But I have to be honest, just for those back taste notes, honey does taste a little bit nicer. This, I'll have you know, is Berkshire honey. Not my own, but I get it from a local person who makes their own honey. So this is good old-fashioned, proper Berkshire honey for the Berkshire housewife. But obviously, you know, honey that you can find anywhere is absolutely fine. I want to get local honey because I've heard it's good for hay fever, and that season's going to be upon us before you know it. So I'm going to be using local honey in the hope it helps me with mine. But honey, sugar, golden syrup, anything sweet, agave syrup. I'm sure there's a Sweet Freedom one as well. Anything you want that you're just going to be a little bit sweet. You can use it in pancakes with yogurt over your cereal, in cakes, even in stews if it's just too sour and too salty. Cakes, biscuits, breads, all sorts. I really would always make sure that I keep a little extra something for when I want to be a bit more versatile in my cooking. And honey, sugar, syrup, the rest is really essential. Mixed herbs. Now these are mixed herbs, but I'll be honest with you, I've got tons of herbs. I love cooking, so I collect a lot of herbs. I find they're really good. Oregano is really good in kind of pasta dishes, and really good for like pizzas. But then I use fresh basil for pizzas, and if I don't have fresh basil, sometimes I use a bit of dried basil. So I have coriander and cardamom and cumin seeds and all kinds of things. But if you're going to just get one from the shop, mixed herbs is the one to get because it's got a little bit of everything in. So if you're making a stew or a roast or whatever you fancy and you just need some herbs to spice it up and you don't want to have to pay out for the fresh, or the fresh you've got has gone off, this is perfect just to have there. Now, don't forget, because it's dried, it's going to be far more strong than the fresh stuff. So if you're replacing fresh with dried, use probably about half and you should be fine. But herbs are a great addition to pretty much any savoury dish. And if you can be brave, maybe a sweet one. I don't know, but if you have any ideas, do tell me in the comments. Next we have oil. Pretty self-explanatory. I like to use sunflower oil or vegetable oil just because I think it's probably slightly healthier. I'm sure somebody on the internet is going to correct me. Oil is just perfect for everything. Obviously not just frying things, but you can also use it in place of butter for cakes, certain cakes. So you can fry your pancakes, your eggs, your burgers, your steaks, your everything you want, plus it can be used in cooking. I also like to put a little, like a teaspoon of oil when I've finished boiling pasta, drained all the water away, toss it in a teaspoon of oil, olive oil if I have it, if not sunflower oil is just as fine, just to keep it tossed up like that so that when you do come to serve it, if it's cooled down, it doesn't stick together. So I do have oil in the cupboard because it obviously is good for cooking things, and it is for good inputting into cooking. As I said, several cake recipes and things like that really rely on oil, and it's just a good idea to keep it in the cupboard. So this is an essential that we always have. Flour! Yes, flour! Not too expensive and really, really versatile. Now, I have a recipe which uses flour. This is plain flour, but you can use plain flour in this recipe, or you can use self-raising. The recipe is for bakes, and it is here. Ping! But then obviously I have cake recipes. Ping! By the way, if that pinging's happen and no links come across the top, this is going to look really weird. So anyway, this is so versatile for cakes, for pancakes, for bakes, for breads, for thickening stews, for absolutely everything you can think of. Flour is brilliant. You just need a bag in the back. Just keep a bag in the house somewhere. Oh no, I don't know what to do for dinner. Oh, I've got to think of something to make. Oh, I'll make a mince cobbler. So I'll do a mince stew and then I'll make the little scones to go on top. I got flour. We've got a soup. It's so boring. I need some dumplings. We've got flour. I don't know what to have for breakfast. How about pancakes? We've got flour. So there you go. I would always say definitely have some flour. This is plain. I always have a plain and a self-raising, but if you don't have both, it's probably best to go for plain because there are recipes that can incorporate the raising agent for you, and plain can be used for everything. If you only have self-raising and something calls for plain flour, you can't take the raising agent out of the self-raising. So I would say plain at a push, possibly with some baking powder in your cupboard. That would be great. And then you've got the flexibility of both. But if you can get both, plain and self-raising, brill. If not, plain's your bag. Last but not least, rice. This is a huge bag of rice, but we get through quite a lot of it. It is so versatile. It can be had with any meal, any leftover, stir fry, rice as a side dish, rice with a stew. Do you know that you can even make rice pudding with long grain rice, which this is? So it is something that we always have. It goes with everything. If you've got some meat leftovers and stuff like that, a great stir fry is just so good to have. If you have bolognese left over and no pasta, have it with rice. If you have a roast meal and you're like, I didn't remember to get the potatoes, try some rice. It's really, really good. It lasts forever and it's just so flexible. So easy to have. As you can see, we buy the big bags. We get through this stuff. It's just good stuff. And as I said, if you fancy a dessert, there is actually a dessert which has long grain rice in, and I will try and see if I can get that made and put into my videos. But for now, I would say that keeping it in the cupboard is always great. Do you know you can even, if you've got some vegetables, I would do a vegetable stir fry and mix it with the rice and then grate some cheese on top, and there you've got a perfect dinner without having to do much or buy much. It's just such a great thing to have in your cupboard, and I am never without this in the house. As you can see, we buy it in large amounts and we've still got enough to see us through for a little while now. So there you have it. They're my personal 10 things to have in your kitchen cupboards. You may feel differently. You may have some things you'd like to add or things that you wouldn't have in there at all. Please do tell me what you would use instead. I'm always excited to hear other ideas and other ways of doing things. The name of the game is flexibility and finding out other essential things. So there may be something I haven't put down that could be my new favourite cupboard essential. So if you have it, please tell me, share it with me so I can share it with everybody else and be a lot more versatile with what we bake and cook for our family. So thanks so much for joining me for my 10 essential things for your kitchen cupboards. And I look forward to seeing you for one of my other videos soon. Take care. Bye.